Welcome back to Building Beyond with TecTon. In this episode, we're going to go over the subject of, and we're going to showcase our projects and share with you some of the business lessons that we've all learned throughout our career and in the projects that we talk about. Let you guys get to know us a little more. I'll start off and just one of the biggest lessons I learned on the first big project that TecTon did, which was the Advenir. It's a Marriott down here in St. George, Utah. You can't give the responsibility up too soon. You need to give the responsibility, and you need to watch. You need to confirm that they're doing it the right way, and make sure the progress of it's working out. It's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and I unfortunately I have relearned that lesson a couple times. So it's a big lesson there as a business owner that's trying to grow, and don't grow too fast. Get the right people and don't grow too fast. Like keep it under your fingernail until they've proven themselves, the person you place over it. So then from there, we got more projects. What you got?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. You gotta nail the handoff. You gotta make sure that whoever you are trying to transfer your responsibilities to is aware of past, present, and future objects and circumstances going on with the job. And so to me, then transferring that information, whether it's on paper or you've talked about it and one person took notes. I like notes, but I'm forgetful. But getting that information data over to somebody, if you're going to hand responsibilities of like PM or stuff off, then I think it's important to get the information to that next person, as well as knowing that they're capable of taking on the responsibility.
With you three business owners, at some point, you got to find the time where you can phase yourself out. When you're in construction, when you start from ground one, you start by going out there and sweating, putting a belt on, and busting your ass, and creating a crew and running them to be profitable, but you have to phase yourself out of working in the business and start working on the business to help yourself grow. And it kind of goes to what you guys are saying. Like, how do you know that it's going to be okay? You have to take some kind of leap, right? Leap of faith in a way to just be like, I got to do it. This is my next guy. If he's not going to work out, I just have to get somebody else. And you alluded to nailing it. You don't have to get it right the first time, right? It's not gonna.
That's a great point, and that's what I kept telling myself as I seen the project going a little bit haywire. That's what I kept telling myself. Like if he's not gonna, like if I'm not gonna learn to let people do it their way, then when? And there was other aspects of the project itself that it wasn't all his fault, my foreman's fault that it was going haywire. But in our last episode, I referred to Lehigh here, that I didn't teach him what I should have taught him. And I feel like I can do better in that, but I just don't. And part of it is that's how I learned. I learned to do what I'm doing because I got thrown out there on my head. And so that's what I expect of others. It cost the company money. It was a $940,000 job, and we lost close to 10%. We paid close to $90,000 to do that job. And obviously I learned so much from that I have value off of that money spent. And so it's money well spent. But to your point, it is what I kept telling myself. And would I be where I am today if I wouldn't have figured out how to just pass a platon and take the hits as they come? I don't know, because that is a truth. One of the we all know Merrill Jessup from our childhood. What he said is it took him. He was in the equipment, earth moving, excavating, and he said that every time he was training someone in on equipment, it cost him $100,000. And so the truth of it is, I mean, imagine you're trying to train a foreman in on $1 million project. Like, what's the ratio? It's going to cost you some money. So you have a great point there.
That's the biggest thing about being an employee right there is like the time and money you put into somebody to get them off to where you feel like they should be. You're so far, it's hard to put a number on the price to train somebody. But it's actually, in the same aspect, it's priceless.
Yeah, especially in that high of a job description, the foreman, you're responsible for that success of $1 million project.
Absolutely.
Or more.
Yeah.
I do not like, and to that point, we've in our last podcast we've alluded to the fact that Soup and Butters came on and they just was handed it to him without a lot of great handoff and teaching. I have one question, that is, would have you guys learned as much as if it wasn't that way?
Not in the state of mind I was in, because I had ran my own business for 6 years, and it was a mom and pop business. It was something that wasn't ever going to grow, but I always wanted something that would be big. And to come into it, I thought that I knew a lot more than I really did. So I was pretty humbled as far as the difference between where I was, my background, and what I was actually getting into.
Yeah. So you're glad that you were handed that to you, that you got that lesson.
It was. It was the only way that I could learn that lesson in the state of mind that I was in already.
I could see that too.
So I definitely would have learned the same, but not in the amount of time, and I wouldn't have appreciated it. I guess I can't say the same. There probably appreciation goes a long way. But it was almost a reason for me to go back to oil fields at one point.
I was scared there for a few months.
It was rough when I got, but you just have to get through the situation, the bad situation, and man, it's so rewarding when you're on the other side of it and it's behind you.
Yeah.
And it's what going through that's what made me give up, like getting through that really shitty situation that we was in with the gardens and that, and looking back and seeing that it's behind us.
It was a success.
Was the success that I needed to make me truly let go of what I had with the oil field that I stuck with for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And start really loving this and moving forward. And my full focus is TecTon.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Bert on this subject a little.
I was just gonna say, I think that alludes to the perfect value of experience and why you can't replace experience. So if you get told exactly how to do everything, you might not know why you done it, or might not even know what it took for somebody else to learn it. But when you are able to learn things the hard way. It's like building your muscle. You don't just think you want muscle and it just grows. You got to go work it out, break it down, make it painful, and then they grow, and then they grow. And it's the same thing with building and experience. And maybe it doesn't even matter what profession you're in, experience and going through the hard times is the only way that you can appreciate or achieve success or the good times. So I think it's perfect. I mean, I've gone through countless experiences on jobs through the previous business that I had founded and ended up selling before I came here. I'm reminded of one project that you could say we got fired or we quit, but the homeowner couldn't understand what the bank was doing, and the bank was following the progress on the job and paying out accordingly, and the homeowner couldn't understand why we was getting paid if the house wasn't done, and so he wouldn't approve the draws. And when you get into a situation like that where you didn't vet your customer properly and you didn't manage that side of the project, I would call this project in the beginning, and this is the real lesson, is it got dropped in. It was a drop in your lap project. Mm-hmm. So I kind of needed the work. The job got dropped in my lap, and I took it on without doing much vetting, and it ended up being one of the greatest lessons that I've ever learned. And I don't have a single regret about that project. But in the real time, and while you're going through that, man, it sucked and you have all these regrets. But just like you guys experience and going through the hardship of learning through hard knocks, it has so much value. And the real test is what did you learn from it and how did you apply it? And that's where we've had experiences like that in our individual businesses or lives, and now we have an opportunity to reflect on it, see what we learned, and go prove what we learned and keep learning. That's the biggest thing, is there's still hardship ahead.
There's always something to learn.
Yeah.
The same great feeling of conquering and winning the battle is ahead of us, as well as behind us. It's awesome because that growth never stops. The sky's our limit in that mindset.
Yeah, along that same principle, so we did a project out in Twilla, Utah for another framer, and we all know this project very well. If I would have understood, if I would have dissected and just researched more on, number one, this other framer, number two, the general contractor, number three, the owner, I would have understood that this was going to be a shit show. I would have understood that, and we would have rather sit on our ass. Well, we went on to lose $40,000. And it's a shitty situation. We can come in internally. At the same time, we learn an outward lesson, I'll call it. The outward lesson is do your research. What was the inward lessons? We'd learned a lot of inward lessons on that project.
Absolutely.
So I would say, again, $40,000 well spent. But we didn't need to. I feel like we could have learned those lessons.
I needed to.
I feel like we could have learned those lessons on a profitable job, though, that didn't have as much
absolutely
degrading.
But how much of that would have been
true,
given, like Lehigh, here's your how-to pamphlet, go manage that job? Because you talked about it earlier. You was like, well, it's a good thing I didn't give him this information, because now look, he learned everything. And now you're saying, well, I wish I would have done something so we didn't lose that 40,000. So that's
I think that
define that. And
you have a great point, but I think one of the things that successful people do is they create an environment of hard times while times are good. So, and I think that's what the Gardens did. Like, things were good. We were going to make money, but there was a hard time created out of a good market, So we know what to do when things are suffering now. Like, it's not like we're oblivious to that. And then that's what I'm saying. Like that, I think the same lessons could have been learned on a productive on one of our own projects that didn't have that baggage. That's why I have some regret. But at the end of the day, $40,000 well spent, I believe.
Yeah.
I agree. But that job, there was so many scenarios and so much to learn from that job, because there was the GC to start out in the game. He was the type to like do whatever type of person.
Yeah, the superintendent.
It aligned with the whole custom homes.
What
and
job were you talking
came
about?
from.
The Twila
The
job?
Twila job.
Oh, okay.
Ed, right?
So it started out that way.
Uh,
We got a whole new crew, and come to find out later on, they only had their head guy only had 2 years experience. So there was a lot to that job that turned it was the perfect storm.
yeah,
It really
Well,
was.
how many
And-
times? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not justifying myself, because that job, I learned so much. I was ready to quit because I was so broken as a person in my self-development that I didn't think that I could do it when that job went down, because I came into it with the mindset of, I know what the hell I'm doing. But
Right.
a very humbling experience for me, to say the least.
That's what I gotta say too. It's not because the work's hard or that you don't know what's going on, because we did have counsel. I say you didn't teach that. I mean, that was half a joke, because
I never.
anytime you would call you give good advice. Being in the industry and doing that. But like Zub said, the biggest thing that gave you the hardest time was the self-disappointment. Like, am I the reason why we're not making enough? Or am I the reason why we're getting all these threats and stuff from the GC because he didn't like this or he didn't like that? Sure. And I haven't failed at anything that I've tried. And that's probably because I haven't put myself in a big enough stage to fail. But it starts making you wonder if that's going to be the first one, and that's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I think in any success, I think you have to be good with failure. Honestly, like that doesn't mean we want it,
right?
But like you can't let failure weigh you down and stop from heading after the more success.
And you only fail when you quit.
Right.
And I get that, but that was where I was at.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if you guys got another project. I got a couple more. You got a project.
Mm-hmm. Any project?
Any projects that we can learn lessons from, we can talk about, have a good conversation.
River's Edge.
Oh, hell free.
It's going on the same time to
I think River's Edge, let's just chalk that up as part of the Twila project.
Well, we may have learned some of the same lessons, but I think there's a few different
was going
ones.
on
I think we
at the
should
same
dissect them a little different.
All right, I'm gonna
I
take.
think there's a few different issues between them.
There is.
And there's value in dissecting those issues, because I feel like that's how we truly learn. And there's lessons that we haven't learned because we haven't identified them. And this is perfect. Like, you talk about them. Now they're behind us. They're not a sore spot. We're able to talk about them. We're able to admit our own mistakes on them, which is the first step to improvement. And so I think we should dissect them individually. We got time here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the River's Edge. Lehigh, you as the main PM on there. You had one of our favorite little assistant PMs, and talk about that. Let's see.
I think one thing is only talk about the points that our listeners can take a lesson from.
Yeah.
Like the little rabbit holes that I tend to always go down, because trying to over-explain yourself, just like touch bases on just the lessons, I would say.
It's follow up. That's what I think about when I think about River's Edge is follow up. Following up on, you know, what needs to happen, and it was fresh on the mind. Because it was like it back to back from Toila, but it was fresh on the mind. So the biggest thing I learned is that you can put somebody there and tell them to do something and like expect them to do it, but did they do it?
Yeah. I don't remember the old adage about that. What's it called? Like trust and verify or something like that.
Yeah, that's a big saying when you're trying to give people responsibility. Trust and verify.
Yeah,
Make sure-
absolutely.
Make sure that
Biggest
you
thing.
trust that person and that you verified that they understand what you're talking
I think
about.
the verification part of that comment is the most important.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely.
Especially starting out with somebody.
Oh,
new.
yeah.
It takes
And
years
it-
and years and years to be able to trust somebody without verification.
Absolutely.
Um,
No matter
I
how
wanna-
much they say.
Because there's
They
a
know what they're
comprehension
doing and
barrier
they'll-
there that's much like a language barrier. Comprehension barriers are real, and most people don't explain to you that there's a comprehension. So you got to verify that they comprehended the information.
I want to say, the way we were doing stuff though too, we also learned a lesson there. In my opinion, these jobs that we're talking about, there was also a job that was getting more attention, more verification, that was going smoothly in most scenarios, that we were also over in PMing and stuff. I think we learned a great lesson. And
What lessons in those ones that were going good?
those were the ones that we
Right,
had
but what?
more attention on. And
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's
Like-
just trust and verify. Get somebody that you can trust, but make sure you can verify, because you can verify it. So the ones that were going good, you didn't have somebody you could trust, so you trusted yourself, and they went good because you were.
Man, that's a good point.
It was going, and you were making sure it was going the right way. Like, you didn't give it a chance to fail because you didn't have somebody you could trust. The ones that you trusted and then verified or didn't verify, and like you alluded
Yeah.
to, like
I-
verifying is
I
biggest
think
thing.
that's a huge lesson right there. Like we talk about, you three have came in and you've really taken the TecTon operations over in the field operations almost totally over. Like I only give advice a couple times a week now, right? Like y'all's got it. And so the question comes up, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? Especially from Nephi. And I think I'm still going through the verification part of trusting. You know what I mean? Like I've trusted that I've trusted y'all's got it, but I'm just not there on the verification to where I can pull away my attention. So I think that's a good point. Like you have to go through the steps to get there. And if you're running around having so many irons in the fire, they're not being ran appropriately. You know, that some of them are being burned.
Right.
Absolutely.
One, if you have 4 people you can trust, you can verify 4 things when you're doing big projects.
Yeah.
When you have one person you trust, one job that you don't, if you know that you have to verify, and we do because of the lessons we've learned, that's easy too. Like, what was too many irons in the fire then is not now, is my point.
We could, I agree with that.
Based off
Because
lessons
we know
learned.
what we're expecting. We know
Yeah,
what we're seeing better. We've had
absolutely.
experience in this exact field and on these types of buildings. Yeah.
One of the things that I think was, I don't know if it was seen this way to all, but I oversold. So there's a very large project. Square footage wise, it was the second largest project we've done. It was 230,000 square feet in Logan. The Strata townhomes and apartments. I oversold that. I sold that so hard, and I got it for like we couldn't do any work for the price I got that one for right now. With how expensive nails are, how expensive labor is, even though labor's come down a little bit. But the huge lesson, like don't be so desperate. Don't put yourself in a situation that you're so desperate that you have to oversell yourself. And when I mean oversell as in you at some point someone's gonna buy your product. You just have to be a little bitch more. You just really have to get in their noses. And yeah, be fine with coming down 2 or 3%. That's the kind of overselling I'm talking about. And it was a good project. I learned a lot. It kept cash flows going because they paid every 2 weeks, which was great. So cash flow was great from it, but we were losing money. I think after retention is when we made our book showed that we had any. Even broke even on the project. And that was a $2.5 million project. So a lot of lessons, a lot of experience, but overselling yourself can get you in a lot of trouble. If they wouldn't have been paying every 2 weeks, that I think that job would have took me out.
That was only $2.5 million project.
Yeah.
Labor only. What would you say, that was 2019 numbers. What would you say they were like in 2021?
I bought it, or I signed the contract, I believe it was in 2019.
It was.
When we start, yeah. So if it was labor only, it'd be another 25% more. We signed that and for $520 or $535 a square foot.
Across the board.
Across the board, yeah. It was because of that's another big lesson. It was because of our processes that we did that whole project with 12, 14 man crew because of the processes we had. 3 men were prefabbing, 2 men were standing walls, 3 men were putting the floors on and sheeting, and going and so forth.
But I remember visiting that project when I was part of Common Sense, and I was quite impressed with the operation itself. I wasn't privy to man hours or the lack thereof and stuff, but when I seen that project, I thought, well, this is kind of well organized. You got this process and that process, and all I seen was a bunch of men working, and Nate was able to come to the window and talk to me for a minute, and shit still kept happening. So I figured that he had it figured out at that point.
You have a belt on?
He didn't have a belt on, no. I think I
dressed
visited
super
that
nice?
job because he was there. I think that was right around the time when Nate had found out all the other duties that you have besides being on the job site and making sure that job gets done. Because at some point, that's...
Was that
there's
job
so many
where
things.
you figured out that you needed to get out of
I would
belt on and go work on your business?
TecTon ran so lean and mean up to that point that like I kind of had the mindset that I don't know if these guys are going to be with me all along. So like, why do I need to go build all the processes? Like I hadn't had making this in, like I always knew I was going to be big and I always knew that. But at the time, the current situation was I didn't know if I was going to need another job after this because maybe I'm working these guys too hard. I was still in that mindset up until that project. And then during that project, I seen that we could really do a lot with processes. We could really do a lot with good management. And so Bert is 100% correct. It's not when I pulled off the project per se, but it's when I realized why I needed to pull off the project. Was during that. I actually built the clubhouse.
Yeah.
I personally. Like I sheeted that
Single
roof.
handedly.
Single fucking handedly.
I think everyone who gets this to this stage, they have a story of their tool belt and they're running around.
Yeah.
And they're busting it. And it's true. Like
And
you don't get here without doing that, which reminds me of one thing Lehigh alluded to is how young this PM was. And like really you walk on a job and you're like this 40-year-old that's been doing this since you were a teenager. And you seriously have questions like, I'm taking my commanding orders from somebody who has far less experience from me, so I must be careful with what I got to be careful with the information he's given me because we got to watch over the young crows a little bit, us old crows.
There's some smart ones though.
There's
a few smart ones that like they know what they're doing there, but they have never went through the life experience.
Yeah.
That's been beneficial in some ways too.
In
my experience, because they if
The
they can
ignorance.
admit they don't know,
then you got
you got a good one because you can tell them and they'll be like, okay,
and then they'll know.
And you're not. I mean, we don't have characters taking advantage of a situation like that, but stuff goes smooth, and they end up being so happy.
I think you ought to talk about where you learned that. Like that was a damn nice project. Where you learned that, where you're speaking of.
Mm-hmm. That was talk about where I learned it.
The project, project. Yeah, let's showcase that project and that very lesson. I don't know if there's any other lessons you could have learned. That's how smooth it went.
Well, I ended up learning from that same company, but then the guy retired. The guy that taught me so much about it was the first big project because I come and finished Strata, that one we were talking about. You started in 19, and then it was the first big building that I did, and the framing manager for the general contractor taught me so much. He took a liking to me, and he would give me all kinds of pointers. He would he knew where we were. On kind of a personal level too. I assume you would talk to him quite a bit, but either he was making badass guesses or he knew, or you would talk to him quite a bit because he kind of knew where we were as internally as a company and kind of on a personal level, like where we were in the stage of the business and stuff. And he taught me a lot and then quit. And the new PM or the new framing manager, he had right off the bat admitted he didn't know. And I took his
lack of knowledge.
No. But yeah, I didn't do anything bad with his lack of knowledge. I just took the lessons that I learned from the former
From Scott
framing manager and just tried to teach him the same stuff. And the only thing that he did was like, "Oh, this kid knows what he's talking about." So I'm gonna go ahead and get him what he needs. And if he says it got to the point where if I said it, and then his superintendent would say something, he would.
Yeah, I think a big thing you did there that's repeatable is read the room. Like read the room, and I think what you learned really quick, and I did too, is the first time I met Scott. He's the first framing manager you're talking about. I knew right there and then he was going to be a valuable source of learning, and it was part of why I hoped he was going to help Messiah. But Messiah is unhelpable at sometimes. Don't let him hear this.
He'll hear it.
So
cat's out of the bag. It ain't like you.
We love Messiah though.
Before.
He's our buddy.
And you read that same thing when you met Scott. Is this guy? He's actually going to help me. He's one of the few people I've ever worked for that knew I knew enough to do his job, but he knew I needed to know a little more to do it good.
Yeah.
And he was just nice enough to do both, give you both
opportunities.
And
I actually kind of floated around the idea of him partnering up with me. That was before this talk was before I found you.
Mm-hmm.
Is because he's a great guy. He was a great guy, and very knowledgeable. And then you just read the room when this other gentleman came along, and you just knew what needed to happen. So I think that's a big repeatable lesson: is read the room and adapt.
I was absolutely worried that, I mean, him being who he was, as far as in the company, I thought he was going to come be arrogant, and I was like, crap, this is going to turn into a pretty successful situation because of the stuff that Scott taught me, and this arrogance is going to come in and wreck it all. And it was like, I couldn't have been any further from the truth. But just like you said, like, I gave it time. I didn't sabotage it because that's what I thought was going to happen. That was just a fear, so to speak, a worrisome, so to speak, and it ended up working quite amazingly.
Yeah, I love those jobs. I wish they were building more West States. Sure wish they were doing more. But
awesome guy, I gotta say.
Another project. I don't know. There's so many lessons. It's so bad. I relearned too many lessons.
The first job that when I came on here with TecTon, the first job that I was introduced to was the gardens, and Nephi had just started it. And coming on the gardens and talking about PMs and different things, like that project had this unorganized forcefulness about it that made it dark. Like that project had a cloud over it the whole time.
Oh,
and it wasn't that we weren't being productive and getting the job done. It was that every time that the superintendent or the PM, mostly the PM was come hell or high water, the schedule was going to be met. And if you screwed up, then your schedule got shortened rather than lengthened. And there was unrealistic schedules for all of the subcontractors. Mm-hmm. They're all working on each other. And so it was a dysfunctional, combobulated project that just never had this feeling of success.
Yep.
And like I guess you just have to vet that's one way. Maybe we would never work for that GC again because of it. Like I wouldn't.
I'd never sign off on a contract with them again.
And just because of that, like you have to give your subs or your constituents like an opportunity to perform, and that project didn't allow for that.
There was 4 subs working on that building after we got off that second framed floor, and there was only one, and it was a sprinkler guy that didn't say the exact same thing that you guys just said.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many.
This is so dysfunctional. This is nuts from the start. It's the first time I worked with this company because I know these other guys that decided they didn't want to work with them anymore, and I don't think I'll ever do any business with this company again.
Yeah, and there's companies out there. Just do your research, and trust people. Like if people say it's shitty, it's probably shitty. And because I'd heard it. I'd heard of them a little bit, but I was a little bit like, you know what? We fucking got this.
Maybe there's a reason why all the subs there was the first time they'd ever worked for that company.
Yeah. No.
And if we were talking great things about that company, we might name their name, right? But since
I actually considered naming their names for our viewers so they spread the word. But no,
yeah, it's really not who we are.
They can burn themselves.
No, they can. If somebody wanted to call and ask us,
things will happen the way they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
If not now, then eventually.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think we need to talk a little bit about leadership, like the leadership that what we've learned on our own leadership. For me, definitely, like there's so many things. I had an aha moment just the other day. I don't like the guy, but I like the guy. You know those kind of people where it's you don't want to listen to him, but you're just fine listening to him because you like their points, and that's Dave Ramsey. He was talking about who he put at CEO over his company. And he was talking about who he didn't put over his company. And one of the big things that he had was the CEO should give that company an unquestionable direction. Everybody in that company should know the direction. And I had an aha moment. Like me as a CEO of TecTon, I'm like, how well am I doing that? Like, am I being that leader that's out there giving a direction for the company and pursuing that with the company, with the individuals, you as partners and the employees as a part of the force? Like, how well am I leading that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a new thing. I had an aha moment there. I don't have any posters up making it obvious the direction of the company. Simple things like that. Where am I at? That was.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky to be here with you guys in TecTon, like-minded, care about our work, our efforts, and the product we put out before and after it's done.
There's probably about a 40-60 ratio on 60 being when we talk, that's all we talk about is the direction of the company, what we going to do next, how we going to improve it, and then 40% on what's going on.
That's true.
The moment.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That kind of happened naturally, I believe, with us. I mean, we're always talking about the direction of the company, where we think it's going to go, where we want it to go, and what we're doing right now.
I believe where I could definitely do better is making a process or creating a process that any individual inside the company, not just us partners that are always talking, always having our get-togethers, our masterminds, if you may say, we need to create that process that everybody can buy into, not physical money, but they're invested in the direction
that
of the
they
company.
believe in and can work towards. And
so, like, one of my mentors, Frank Martin, I walked through his office last month, and one of his favorite sayings is profit through process. And he has that posted all over his office. So there's not a person working for him that doesn't think of profit through processes.
Yeah.
And that was another big aha moment, profit through processes. Because the market's going to go where the market goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we want to sit here and say that we should get paid more because we are. I think what we stand out is communication and diversification in the communication world. And I want to speak a little bit about that, and you guys give your input, absolutely. But I think there's so many characters you're dealing with on every project, every day. And the joy is that we're 4 different people as well. They're not, if they're not liking one of us, there's another one of us, like there's diversification in that characteristics that I love so well. But I kind of went down the rabbit hole there, but
you're 100% correct. I don't think that we're enough alike that one can't like one and not like the other, but we have a lot of the same traits. I mean, we've all been likable people, like working in the oil field with Lehigh, like everybody loved him, but he
wasn't happy there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it right there.
He wasn't happy there.
No,
Hey,
he wasn't happy there. Oh,
He
man.
just thought he was a better driller.
There
He
was
wasn't
no
a good
silence.
No,
driller.
I was.
I want to bring this down to what lessons do you have, Lehigh, in the leadership?
Well, just to have people like you is a big important step as leadership. To show the people that are on you and like your intentions of the job and like what to make it, and it's more than just saying like my projections is we're going to be done this time. You got to like physically show that you're doing things like scheduling the lumber deliveries and like the crews and like what you need, how many guys you need on the crew to get the job done on the schedule. You need to show the GC or the superintendent that you're actively trying to meet their expectations and their desires.
Contributing to those under you is like their efforts. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at. Is
Yeah.
like they need to know you're contributing, not only
Absolutely.
being
You're-
told where to go, but
Yeah.
contributing
and
to that.
See, like the truth is in action.
Absolutely. Like one of the points, and this came up a little bit ago, a little bit. Bert mentioned that you can't beat experience. I would argue you can't beat action.
That's true.
Well, I mean, you if you want to get philosophical about it, then you can't even have experience without first taking action. So I don't have an argument with you.
Damn it.
You're gonna have to do better than that if you want an argument.
Tomato.
Bert, question over to you. What do you got for us here as partners, as leaders in some roles and followers in next? What, through your experiences, one of the great men of us four's lives is Father, and I think that I think you out of everyone has had most experience with him. So I'd love to hear a little lesson on leadership that you learned from him.
Well, if you're gonna put it like that and bring that into it, then I got to go to the old verbiage, do something whether it's right or wrong, and how I actually implemented that from the early days where I was wearing my tool belt and busting it is, even if I didn't know exactly what I was doing, I did something. And yeah, I worked the sawzall over pretty good once in a while.
I can.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, sitting there and wondering how you're going to do it doesn't get the job done. When there's a screw up, sitting there and wondering how you're going to fix it doesn't get it fixed. You got to move on to the action part. And to Nate's little point about if you don't have action, you can't have, well, now I've screwed that up, but what you talked about before, you just take the action and the success will follow. In short, like do something, whether it's right or wrong.
That
The
can
saying.
be a little controversial though, as far as people like you got to have a clear plan in sight. Like clear plan in sight to me is like actually the desire to get the job done right. That's my clear plan. But
Well,
I'm,
and I'm
agreeing
sure
to exactly what
yeah.
you're saying.
Well, and that goes along with being able to just go and do it. Like you want the job to be done. That's why you just go and do it. So yeah, we're both right. Like you have to have a forward progress mindset, or you're going to be willing to stand there and think about how it's going to be, not know what to do.
Right.
One of the biggest lessons in framing that I learned, and it's some other processes, some other subcontracting line of works you can't learn it this well in, and that is if you fuck up, just fix it. Don't. I mean, if you know you fucked up, you know what you need to do right. Just fix it. You like don't get creative. Don't create a committee on why you fucked up. Just fix it and don't. You know, you learned the lesson. And that's one of the things I get compliments from superintendents, GCs, and people underneath me about. One thing I've learned from you is just fix it. Don't worry.
Yep.
Quit apologizing. Just fix it.
Yep.
You know, get her done.
Yep.
Nothing like action.
Exactly what I was talking about.
I've gained a lot of favor just doing with that mindset.
Yeah, it's big. Last people want to do is just sit there and wonder how you're going to fix it.
Situation.
Yeah. I had an experience just the other day with Nephi. I don't know if I told you guys about this, but we messed up and built the windows wrong. He called me 3 times, whether it was about that or not. He was apologizing, like weirdly apologizing 3 different times about that.
I think we got our lines crossed. There was something else I was talking about, and you thought it was about that.
But
I chose to let it go, but we talked about that other thing later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was.
And I just think
the
big point is just I can fix the problem. It's
I feel
fine.
like you two have some past childhood memories you need to
know,
work out.
I think we do.
It
I think
feels
we
like
do.
we do, but I don't remember any.
That's how I'm at. Like we need to go through. We need to go through a little session.
Yeah, you do. I can be your therapist.
All right, right here, live. You seen it first.
I'll watch.
What was it, Nate? When was it?
Well, that asshole. Every time I wanted to get in favor of Mother Nancy and play with her Legos.
They were my Legos.
Exactly. Like this
They
is what
just
I'm
got
talking
to
about.
They were
Sit in
bought
Mother
for you, but
Nancy's.
they were his Legos.
They were bought for, no
They
kidding.
were bought for me.
No.
And Mother Nancy just like, we want to keep these ones nice. So I'm going to take your Legos and I'm going to put them in my closet so we can keep them nice. All the other kids have their toys strung out.
Oh, and then we're out getting trouble in the yard.
opened a
He
can of
cracks an
worms.
egg over my head.
I did?
Yeah, you threw an egg over my head.
See,
Like,
I
here,
knew
catch
that
this
was
egg.
I never.
And
I don't remember that.
I tried to get you in trouble. Guess who got you out of trouble?
Oh,
Mother
Nancy.
Nancy got you out of trouble. And
Well,
in any other given
this-
circumstance, you would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Or
Any
maybe
other-
with any other adult in the room
Yeah.
besides Mother
Mother
Nancy.
Nancy wasn't there. You would have been in your
it's-
room.
It's about the jealousy. I get
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, jealousy burns.
If you look in the mirror, there's a lot of things to get people jealous over what you got too.
Hey,
So
I mean, there's 2 ways to get what you want. Get other people off of what you want, or just go and get it. It's something different.
I feel
I
like
think there's more.
And
But yeah,
I found out
Yeah,
with you. I found out with you. I gave up. Mother Nancy, you were always Mother Nancy's.
that was his
yeah.
security.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
like
You
like
can't.
there was Father's room, there's Mother Nancy's room at the end of the hall. All of us, when we're in trouble or running from our big brother, we'd run down to Father's room. Nephi would just take a left.
he
there
was the
instead of a
only
right.
one with that ticket.
Yeah, he'd run into Mother Nancy's room.
He didn't even have
It
to be
was-
brave to do it.
Don't
Yeah,
hate
I
the
mean-
player, hate the game, man.
It wasn't. It
I
wasn't.
mean, everybody
necess-
knows that saying.
It wasn't even necessarily a benefit. It was just. It was so. It was so.
More people were scared of Mother Nancy than they were Father.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just so. You were the only one there, so it just caused jealousy. Like we all were jealous over it.
Yeah.
You know, I did something. I brought Father into this, and so we all have to talk about him a little bit. One time when I was, and this is a great. This is a moral lesson more than anything. So, Lehi's milking in the community dairy, and one night, and he's getting ready to go milking, and it was just myself and my big brother Josh and Lehi there at home. So Josh and I, we're trying to make trouble and trying to hang on our big brother's coattail till he goes, and he pushes us aside and gets on the house phone with a girl, trying to get a girl to come help him milk or come meet him or
I
whatever.
bet I know what girl that was.
Oh,
And
and it
this
was the boss's daughter there.
Yep. And this wasn't condoned in our community. So because he pushed us aside, we got curious when it got on the other house phone so you can hear. Back in those days, and you could hear it. And
Yeah, screwed it up for me.
and he found out. He found out we were on there, and instead, he didn't hurt us. Like, he didn't hurt us. He came to us and says, "I'll give you." Was it $1 or $5? It was $1. You said, "I'll give you $2 each if you don't tell Father," and you left it at that. And I'm gonna say, you stupid jackass. You shouldn't have left it at that. Like, you needed to give us more, because Father would have gave us $2.
Did you tell Father?
Yeah. Josh and I conversed
Did you get
about
the
it.
$2?
Yeah. Josh and I
told.
Yeah. Josh and I conversed about it and decided, you know what? I'll bet your Father will give us $2. So we went and told Father, and we get done telling him, and he gives us the good old dad pat on the head. "Thanks for telling me, son." He also said he would give us $2 if we didn't tell you. So he pulls out $4 and gives us each $2. Always tell your dad.
Do you remember any repercussions for that, Lehigh?
No, Dad was pretty easy on me. He knew, like, Dad was a very good reader of character, and he kind of knew where my heart was at the time. So I don't feel like it was rough.
He was okay with it being on that girl's chest.
Yeah, I did get my ass chewed and stuff, but yeah, I've had a lot worse, is how I'll put it.
Yeah.
But I do
Absolutely.
remember that. That was like I was a little scared and pissed off.
But no, this fun day, fun episode here. A lot of fun. Like, a lot of great lessons, and I like to share the biggest lesson I got out of today, and I think I learn a lot when I have these kind of conversations with my partner. So not only are we here to share our life lessons and our experiences with our listeners, I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about each other, our feelings, our lessons, and all that. And to me, I trust and verify. I think that would have saved so much headache. And
Absolutely.
actually, one of these times we'll go over a situation where we missed out on $7 million worth of work because I didn't trust and verify. But with that, that's my 2 bits on it. What do you got recapped, Bert?
Well, I've enjoyed this podcast, and appreciate also getting to talk about the projects and lessons we've learned, and even bringing Dad into it. And I'll just close out with one of my favorite lessons that that I learned from my dad as a dad to a son was the love you felt by him. Like you say, he didn't get after you for wanting to talk to that young lady when it wasn't conducive to our religion, but Dad had an understanding that he didn't make you feel like you was useless or a bad person if you messed up or fell off the wagon doing something.
Yeah.
He always encouraged you to get back on the wagon and go back to work or go back to doing what you're doing, because that's one tiny little, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. And so I've taken that, and I hope I can put that down through to my kids the same way that he did.
That's a huge leadership.
Yeah. Put
Yeah,
your
it is.
shoulder
Right
to
there.
the wheel.
Yeah.
That, like, don't make those under you feel hated and like they don't want to keep trying.
Mm-hmm. Well, most thing I got out of this is admit that you didn't do it right and learn a lesson. I mean, as soon as you could admit that what you did wasn't the right way or wasn't right, or what you should have done, then you can look for things that you should have done that would have been better. And even if
Absolutely.
there would have been better in your head, but in reality they're not, and then there's another lesson to learn. You It's only a failure when you quit.
True that.
Absolutely. This understanding what you need to do to better yourself as a person is the first step to being successful.
Learn yourself. Self-study, I like
Yep.
to say. Well, thank you all for listening to the podcast. We'll be back next week.